We jump in here to game number 5. Bryce, Frodan, take it away for the last time today for you two.
Very much that's Nova. Great setup as we get ready to hop into the beginning of the end. These are the last lobbies that we'll be seeing for today. And after 2 more games of TFT, we're going to lock it up and send our top 8 to tomorrow for Championship Sunday. This is the last few games that some of these players will be even competing in terms of the entire set. Let's see what they've got. Let's hop on board with Team Liquid Robinson with a little glimpse at the Mirage, which is duelist dexterity. So attacking a lot faster. We've been seeing Robin playing more of a mage-based strategy, though, which is very cool. I think Robin's going counter-meta for this tournament, and it's been very effective.
It's been very effective both days. He was one of our top performers yesterday, another top performance from him today. He's just such a solid player, and you were talking about him a little bit at the end of our last game, that people have somehow it's like come full circle. People are underrating Robin because he's not flashy. There's a lot of other players that get talked about, but he's just been quietly in the background doing his thing time and time again, just playing really, really good TFT.
Yeah, I love it. Robin's flashy plays are quite amusing. You never really know. Rob's like, oh, I'm about to do something pretty crazy, and what he does is he puts his carry in the second row. It's like, well, I was kind of expecting something more wild than that, Robin. But I mean, the funny thing is, Robin gets a lot of jokes about being an older member of TFT community. And yet, he actually does have it in him once in a while to bust out some crazy APM. And I think that is also indicative of his standing currently within the top echelon of players. I think there's just moments where Robin has where he can play flexible, he can play open. He also might just get Cavalier Crest when he opens up with this kind of style. But I wonder if that's conducive to the kind of strategy that he was opening with a tier and a rod. And if he wants to commit to that, he doesn't end up going for the Cavalier Crest. It's almost too good to pass up, you think, Bryce?
Yeah, it's just such a good item. It's strong early, it's strong mid, it's strong late. It plays around many of the best units in the game, and we've seen that, yeah, okay, when you get this, you think to yourself, I want to play Yasuo a lot of the time, but we've seen Cavalier Shyvana, we've seen Cavalier Xiaoyu, we've seen Cavalier Siphon. There's just like a lot of versatility because, as it turns out, having a bunch of tanky stats and permanent uptime onto a carry is just really, really valuable. So I think it's a really hard to pass up augment, and I think Robin is correct to take it. Robin doing what Robin does, playing tempo, leveling to 4, slimming an Archangel Staff, so it's a heavy lean towards Mirage for Robin here in the early game.
Yes, let's check in on what's happening on the other side. Chakki taking trade sector, and does not seem to have many 2-stars, so we'll see how he utilizes trade sector as well. It's an augment that's definitely in a weird spot. A lot of people look at trade sector as a powerful reroll option, especially if you have Astral in, because you basically get to speed up twice as fast. Speaking of econ type augments too, Kurumx has Clear Mind, and we see Cluttered Mind from Milk. So a lot of ways to generate gold or effective gold in this game to start things off, Bryce, which is going to lead to some potentially strong capped boards as long as these players are able to hit.
Yeah, it is. It also means for the players that took board power augments, they have a pretty meaningful advantage at this stage of the game and should be doing big damage. It'll be an interesting narrative to track, right? How many people wound up with these econ kind of playing for the late game type of augments, and how many people got stronger right now? Because if you're one of the players who tried to get stronger right now and you're not able to get a win streak going for stage 2, you could be in for a really rough lobby.
Set trying to get it done just with 2-star Shiv, and looks like it's good enough for Milk. The thing about Cluttered Mind and Clear Mind is these instances where you do on the one hand care about your streak, but on the other hand you also kind of don't, because you do get so much gold. So what you actually care about is the moment you want to get strong and how you're preparing for it. TFT is a game of momentum a lot of times. You actually care a little bit more about what direction the game is pushing you towards, and then being able to commandly switch it if you need to on command. That's what the best players are able to do masterfully. That's actually one of Milk's greatest strengths as a player, period. So him losing while being able to massive amount of resources and assets is a huge benefit to his playstyle. So I anticipate Milk to be in a really good spot, even though he took that second loss to Kurumx.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. I think Milk is in comfort zone, and that's part of what makes TFT so fun. Is some players are in comfort zone, playing on that razor's edge, figuring it out, and getting really low on HP, building up their economy, and then spiking in the exact way they need to. Not everyone's in that spot. I'll actually be very curious to see how Chakki winds up doing this game, because he seems to have been a more tempo-oriented player so far from the games we've watched. He's taking an unusual line here. He's stacking up that trainer, investing into it, 3 trainer very early in the game, so going to be getting a lot of Nomsy stacks. But he's playing around trade sector, an augment that typically means you try to get strong right away because you can get your upgrades with all these extra rolls. So it would be a very interesting line to track for Chakki throughout the game.
Take a look at the augments. A couple of other interesting choices. We did see Pocky at the Oni front line with the target dummies. The Darth Nub took Essence Theft, implying that he was trying to play for a trainer opening. And Soju straight up just took Evoker Crest. So a lot of people pushing for that trainer opening. But, a couple of players specifically leaning into the Evoker AP aspect of things. I'm curious how that's going to pan out. Soju, a player that needs a lot of help. He is towards the bottom of the standings. He had good spots, but even like last game, we were watching him have Whisper Deja 2 in a Dawnbringer lobby. He hit it way earlier than everybody else, and yet still went bot 4. Kind of a wild set of games for Soju. We'd have to go back and review it closely. See if he can hold up to the rest of the lobby, as right now we're hopping on board with Kurumx, who's looking at 4 streak. Kurum's board looks pretty okay. And honestly, for a clear mind, streaking is a point of comfort. Some people would even level in this spot to try to maintain their tempo.
Yeah, I think Kurum correctly knows that his board is a little on the fake side. We have not seen exactly who he has faced, but he has only one upgrade on this board in this set. He has, a lot of 1-star Dragonmancer units and other things going on. So I think he's very unlikely to maintain a full streak through the entirety of Stage 2. But hey, we're happy with a 3 streak here, to be honest with you. He's maintained a bunch of HP. He's very wealthy, right? He's already level 5, 20 gold. He's already got 1 extra tick of experience from that clear mind. So Kurum is in an excellent position in this game, even though he loses that fight.
Totally. Another really well-off player in Stage 2 is casparwu. Casper, oh man, it's been a rough day for him, as casparwu has gotten 7th, 4th, 8th, and then 2nd. So it's been, a 3rd instead of that 4th. So it's been very difficult for Casper to feel like he's been pulling himself out of the top 2. And I think it's a little bit of the volatility of Casper's play. He's willing to take a lot of risks, but that risk also feels like it's very error prone to just like sometimes losing control and going 8th. But Casper's also a player that I think has high upside. I mean, I think he's a player that really understands what comps go top 1. And so if there's a player that is also as likely to potentially put together a 1-1, I think Casper's on that list.
Yeah, I think he is too, and technically not mathematically eliminated. The typical cutoff in this format is 27 points. We actually saw 28 points being required yesterday, but 27 is usually what you're targeting, which means if he went 1-1, that would be 27 points. So he's not out of this just yet. He does desperately need to get to first place in this game, though.
Okay, well, he's scouting the competition, sees that Robin finishes his Stage 2 really healthy with that Cavalier Yone beating up on PockyGom. And what a Stage 2 for Casper. He 5-streaked with an all 1-star board while stacking trainer. I mean, this is almost as good as it gets in terms of the ideal setup. He even has the Silas ready to go.
And he's so rich, too. He has 40 gold already. I mean, if you get some gold drop, he's going to be making 50 on Krugs, which is something you often see from lost streakers, but not something you see from win streakers. He has only 3 components, no slammed items here. Wow, these components are not great. He's got 2 cloaks, 2 gloves. Oh, that gets a lot better. Okay, we've got a Sunfire to slam or Gargoyle Stoneplay if he wants to do it that way. I expect to make a Thieves Gloves as well. So that last component is a big deal here.
Oh, interesting. Well, yeah, I think the Sunfire goes in as his only 2-star unit, gives him the ability to slam even a Dragon's Claw, which if you see a lot of people trying to play AP line, it could be very useful. Plus, it also just really locks out certain weird compositions, right? You're talking about like Swain. It's just such a hard thing for Swain to get past any kind of solo frontline decloud. It's mega tanky. So we'll see. Casper does level to 6, pretty cheap. does play a second copy of Jinx. Who's going up against? It's Soju. Soju gear is still at level 5 because he's not on a consistent streak, but Soju's also pretty healthy. And like we said, stacking that Nomsy. And Soju's almost at 2-star Nomsy. He only needs one more stack. How long has he had this thing?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of early Nomsy stackers, snackers, whichever word you would prefer, I guess works fine there. He does have that Heimerdinger too with the Rod on it, which I assume means he opened Rod Heimer off of the carousel, because it's hard for me to envision him actually putting an item onto that unit voluntarily. So he's done a ton of trainer investing as well. We're going to have some big Nomsies by the time this game is over. Oh my god. Oh, these are PockyGom's augments. Okay, if Casper got offered level up, then that would be absolutely outrageous from his spot. PockyGom taking the level up as well with an Astral Board and some very unusual items slammed in combination with each other, a Morellonomicon and an Edge of Night. Where is Pocky going from here?
Yeah, it's very unusual indeed. I mean, these are items that theoretically could go well in a Mirage-based composition. The Edge of Night eventually can find its way to a unit like Yasuo, could end up playing Morello on Deja herself, but it's still very open-ended. I mean, he could also theoretically just play a legendary board. This could be like Shyvana's items and then complement with Pyke and Yasuo. Like, there's just so many different possibilities. No comp doesn't want to utilize some kind of anti-heal like Morello and Edge of Night as a defensive item onto an important melee unit. Going up against Kurumx, who is level 7, by the way, with high-end shopping. I mean, you're talking about high economy. Kurumx has a deadly combination of being able to level up naturally and his shops being one tier higher, and Kurum's still winning. This is such a good spot for Liquid Kurumx.
Yeah, such a good spot, and he really needs it, too. He was in solid position earlier, but has been falling off a little bit late. Takes a bad 8th place in the last game and finds himself on the outside looking in terms of that top 8 position. So really, really nice for Kurum to be in this kind of bounce-back position. Pocky, I think, is going to have a lot of decisions to make for a little while. I think we could probably move on from his board and come back a little bit, because with that level up, like you said, this itemization is strong played around legendaries, right? It's not that they're the best items for him right now, but he's going to have very interesting decisions to make later in the game. Joining Darth Nub for the first time, who looks like he rolled a meaningful amount of gold to stay in this thing on 3-2. A couple of upgrades to speak of, but honestly, considering how poor he is, I think this is going to be a very tough game for him.
Yeah, it's tricky because he wanted to clearly go for 2 stars onto things like his trainers and maybe even find an Anivia or Silas 2, but it's so inconsistent to find that on 6 in particular. Does end up playing an Anivia, does have Meditation 3. Meditation 3 with these Evokers can be very powerful. You're talking about how much mana are we going to be generating from stealing and having no items onto your champions? It's going to be a lot. So the upside, the potential of Darth Nub's comp, very high. Not to mention, one of the best benefits of Meditation is when you stack Nomsy. Nomsy also benefits from these team-wide buffs. They're talking about Meditation, Thrill of the Hunt, Jewel Lotus, even Built Different. I have seen Built Different comp Nomsies. Not very good, but pretty awesome.
Yeah, I really like to call out on the synergy between Essence Theft and the Meditation. It really is such an interesting combination of augments, and it's part of what makes augments so special, right? Is that Essence Theft is an augment that we don't see played very often, and I think in general probably doesn't get played to great impact, but it is so good when you get those two augments together. Hopping on board with Milk, who is getting ready to roll a meaningful amount of gold. We talked about how comfortable he is playing from behind. Let's see what he can do from this spot. Hits the upgrade on the Anivia, which is a very big deal. Is he going to keep rolling, or is he happy for now?
It's tough. It's tough because he's on 2 loss, so he actually doesn't mind losing a little bit more just from the economic perspective, but his health total is quite precarious at 46. Also, with the amount of gold on his bench, he could easily sell up to 40 and maybe push to be over that threshold by the end of this stage, as he does go up against Kurumx, who has slammed the second item. Has an early Aurelian Soul in the bottom corner, but no units to support it, no items onto it. And a very bad loss for Kurum. Holy moly, full loss essentially. And so that's the kind of losses that you have to prevent. And when you start losing control of the tempo of the lobby, things can get really out of whack, even in just a 1 prismatic setup situation.
Yeah, and this is a different cadence to the lobby than we've seen. We've seen a ton of people that have spent a meaningful amount of their gold already. Not a lot of kind of super greedy play style, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Like, it's the reverse dynamic. We were talking about in stage 2. If you're one of the board power arguments, you kind of have to be streaking, otherwise you're worried you're going to get scaled. But so many people felt like we're low rolling early, that they felt like they needed to spend their gold early in order to stabilize. So you've got a bunch of very strong stage 3 boards that can do big damage if you're one of the players that's trying to just build up your econ.
Yeah, and Milk's board is so deceptive because you just look at like how everything has set up, and he has a new recruit, and it's so tanky with so many synergies set up. A lot of the synergies aren't particularly super powerful on their own, right? It's only like 2 Mirage on like Leona and Nunu. It's only like 2 Revel with Tom, Kench, and Sona, but the sum of his parts just add up to a ton of stats just on the board. Not to mention that passive Jade healing and attack speed buff on pretty much the entire board. So Milk ends up finding a really strong stabilization point that he can launch pad to a multitude of different compositions. We're hopping on board with Soju, who had a Deja in the shop and passed it. And now he's starting to roll at 4-1, or rather 3-7. What is he particularly rolling for? If he doesn't want Deja, what is he looking for here?
Yeah, I mean, he wants
Siphon?
to play around this trainer composition. He definitely wants Siphon. That's where that Bloodthirster wants to go. He's also got potentially an Edge of Night he could slam onto Siphon. If he gets a bow drop, he could have a Titan's Resolve. He's got a Duplicator. I expect to see him rolling a meaningful amount of gold. We saw Clear in this position, I believe it was, kind of duct taping that board together with a Shio U as opposed to a Siphon. So even if Siphon's the preference, it's not like it's your only out. And Soju, not stable at all, needs to get that way.
Lulu pair in the shop. Some other Heimer. A little bit on the dizzy side in terms of his options. His bench is full. There's a lot of units he's not going to play, like that extra Ezreal, for example, or the additional Heimer. Finds Corki 2. That's a really big moment here. The only problem is he doesn't have obvious Corki items. Ends up playing a 4th Heimerdinger, which is not going to activate his mage. So he has to put the mage on Corki instead. What is this? Mage Evoker Rebel Cannoneer Corki. And is he going to win because Milk is also greeting his econ trying to fast 8? He is. What an unusual setup here by Cloud9's K3 Soju.
Yeah, unusual setup indeed, but hey, maybe this is BIS Corki. I'm down for him to get one more trade on this. Maybe we get a Whisper Spat on this Corki somehow. That sounds really fun.
Well, not an emblem because it is a silver augment. Milk is the POV that we're on, and you can justify a lot of these. Thrill is a very nice option given that it is just generic healing, and he wants to play these giant legendary dragons if you can find them.
He's so rich. 4-2 with 50 gold to roll. He's going to go for this Deja. Duelist Dexterity, definitely one of Deja's stronger Mirage traits. Going to have that ramping attack speed. He's got great itemization for the Deja in the Jeweled Gauntlet, plus the Hand of Justice, plus the Archangel Staff. So there's a lot to like about this spot. He would obviously love to have a Deja too, but he thinks he's good enough for now. The nice thing about being the fast 8 board is you don't have to go all in right away because there's very few people who are going to be able to contest you because a lot of people haven't spiked on this turn. Casper is one of those people who has spiked on this turn, though. He actually has a Revel emblem. That was his prismatic choice, and he's playing the Revel version of Deja.
Yeah, and it's so powerful because Revel activates off the abilities and the passive. Each attack is going to be activating those Revel fireworks. And Milk ends up taking just a little bit too much splash damage. And now has taken a loss, joining Soju bot 2 right now. PockyGom takes a loss from Kurumx.
Was that an Aushin 2? Did someone have an Aushin 2? Also, what? Soju sold his Corki 2 for a Bard 2. What is happening?
This is so unusual, and he has to find a stabilization point. Oh,
he recombobs his 2-star 4 costs. He had a Corki and a Ornn 2, and he has a Soraka and a Bard 2 now. What on earth is happening with this board?
It's so interesting, and in some ways, I wish he would actually put these items onto Soraka. Evoker is actually one of the best emblems period on her, particularly because she'll be able to cast and combine with Starcaller, which gives you additional mana if your allies are below a certain health threshold. She just ends up infinitely healing your front line and giving units like this Siphon that has Edge of Night and Bloodthirster virtually infinite sustain. Now, that being said, he has so much power in just the raw gold value of his board that he still gets there. So there's still plenty of time for him to get that. And also, the double cast on Bard does end up ramming his legendary odds. Pretty soon, we're going to get to the point where Soju's going to basically be at level 8, just -1 team size because of the way his shop odds work.
Yeah, and once he goes to level 8, he's going to have level 9 odds, basically, and that's going to be really, really powerful from Soju. He has that duplicator still. He only needs one more copy of Siphon, and he is stable. This is a board that, out of nowhere from Soju, it feels like could actually be competitive to win the lobby. He's not quite there yet. It's a tricky spot. He could easily fall off and go out in 7th or 8th place. That would not shock me, but he could also find his way into a super creative and desperately needed top 2.
Oh, I already know. The augment shows up on 4-2, and Soju just says, I'm going to risk it for the biscuit. Speaking of, you said that you thought that there was an Aushin too. You are correct. The man who knew what he could risk to get to this point, Kurumx, has Aushin 2 in the middle of stage 4 with 2 items. Now, they aren't super powerful items. The problem with Kurum's itemization is that there's not a lot of damage amplification. If you look at all his augments set up too, he doesn't also have a lot of stats from that. In fact, 0. So Kurum's actually in a spot where he's going to do well right now, but he doesn't look like he is a big candidate to win the lobby. He has a lot of time to fix that. But for now, it's something to keep an eye out.
Yeah, the thing about Aushin that's so interesting is it all comes down to how much damage it has left over when it does its cast, because it takes so long to cast, you basically need to wipe the board in order to get done, and this is exactly what we were talking about. He actually made it rain on that Deja with the number of bullets, but it just wasn't enough in the end. Joining Casper, who also desperately needs to go first, and he's in a really potentially good spot to do it. He has this Deja 2 online with the static Shiv. Wow, this lobby is shaping up to be very interesting, Dan.
It's just so chaotic when Prismatics enter in the middle of the stage of the game. I think middle Prismatics are kind of the most crazy because it allows people to go for those level ups and high-end shopping for crazy value. So we do take a look at what's happening in PockyGom's department. PockyGom pretty much just needed to not go 8th to make sure that he's cruising to a day 3. Unfortunately, it looks like he is one of the likely players to go 8th currently, as he has 8 HP going up against the Rebel Deja player.
Yeah.
And that is really scary because the way the Rebel Deja works is he's going to be able to hit backline even though there's a ton of things to get into the way of it. The Aushin still has not casted Lightning Rain, and we're finally getting to see it, but I think it's just a little bit too little too late. PockyGom goes down in 8th place. And that is brutal. Now all of a sudden, there is a possibility that PockyGom misses out on the final day of competition.
Yeah, that's brutal for Pocky fans, us being 2 of them, but that is really good for the other bubble players because Pocky was one of those players who was kind of on the good side of the bubble at 22 points, but now that he's getting only 1 point out of this game, 23, he has a real chance of falling below that 27, maybe 28 point threshold. Definitely needs a top 4 next game, maybe a top 3, depending on how all of this shakes out. A player who is essentially guaranteed to be advancing. He needs to score a minimum of 3 points, hopefully at least 4 points to really feel like he's locking it up, is Darth Nub in another solid position. I really like the way that he has played throughout the day today. It feels like he's played around the AP tree particularly well, very flexible in how he's itemizing, who he's carrying, his board state throughout the game, and knows how to cap them out for the first places as well.
Yeah, and has a couple of really interesting options, by the way. Like, I know it might seem like, okay, Warmogs and Ionics are pretty standard, but given that Anivia already inherently shreds magic resistance, and it seemed like he was leaning over to keeping Silas, and therefore maybe playing a little bit of Whispers, as Soju just hit an Aurelian Soul at 2-star, that is big. Itemization opportunities for both of those players, Darth Nub and Soju. What is on the table? A lot of people believe that Mage Emblem is actually not very good on Aurelian Soul. It probably is better served on one of his other units. Puts it on Soraka, can't be going wrong with that. And the reason why is because Mage Cap actually lowers the amount of AP that Aurelion Soul does, and you want to make sure that Aesol is putting out huge damage. And look at Soju, he sees the lines, utilized the Bard to be able to get it, and then eventually moves the items to Soraka too. I love the setup here from Soju.
Yeah, I really like the setup here from Soju as well, but Milk's spot is very scary. He has a triple Zeeks on this Nunu, Dan. This Deja gets her 10 stacks max from the Duelist Dexterity basically instantly and just does so much damage. Soju not dead here, but is very scary. At least he doesn't have Milk in his pool. Milk definitely feels like one of the stronger boards alongside Casper at this stage.
Yeah. Soju also going for 4 Evoker because he has that Evoker emblem. And a little bit awkward because he really wants to keep Lulu for the trainer, so that means he kind of feels like he has to commit to the Sona. He doesn't have many spots to fit in this Ornn because the Ornn is very valuable for the Bruiser. It almost feels like it might be worth just taking out the Bard. Bard gives 2 things. 1, the Mystics, and 2, his Bard trait allows you to get extra mana. I don't think Soju struggles for mana. But the magic resistance might be really valuable considering that there's a lot of magic damage currently in the lobby. As we do see the matchup versus Chakki, this could be a huge fight to be able to swing things and potentially make a move for top 4. But if he's not able to, Soju might be out here in 7th. And Aurelion Soul trying to get it done.
He's got it.
Does end up getting that win while healing and dealing damage. Soju with a huge victory to potentially charge for top 4.
Wow, and Chakki, another player who is in a really similar spot to PockyGom heading into this game on the good side of the bubble, is now down at 11 HP, 1 life. We're so tight at the bottom here with 13, 11, and 11 HP. Chakki would love to score a couple more points here because he really doesn't want to be in the same spot as Pocky, needing to top 4 the final game in order to advance.
Cavalier Unity for Robin, which is been falling a little bit more out of favor the more vertical Cavaliers have become viable. Cavalier Unity was really strong, particularly when you just play 2 or 3 Cav and then you apply to your whole team. But when most of your team are Cavaliers already, it feels like you're down half a Prismatic, as a lot of players would end up describing it.
Oh, nice.
Lands the Zephyr onto the Deja. That's really big to stop her from being able to get that initial ramp up with Duelist Dexterity. Does he have enough time to ramp up his own Deja while he's able to stall out? Does end up getting that first cast, but barely tickles Milk's. I don't know. I think Milk is got him. And Robin Songs is likely to be out here. Does end up taking a loss and down out in 7th. Soju stays alive. Although he doesn't have much HP to work with. That Soraka too has been his saving grace, healing him for so much health this game.
Yes, so much value on that Soraka 2 that he got. And Kurumx takes another win as well. We have 2 win streakers, the boards we've been talking about, the 2 Deja boards, one the Revel Deja variant, and then Milk with the more standard iteration, although the triple Zeeks is definitely super fun. Kurumx has been putting together and upgrading his legendary board. I saw a quick peek. Had a Yasuo 2 there, so he's got a really strong board. And Chakki, Darth Nub, and Soju just doing anything they can, trying to scrap for those additional points. I don't think any of those players have a realistic shot of getting into our top 3, but any fight wins they can net are such a big deal. And Chakki has come a long way since we last saw him. He's actually gotten this Revel Heart, has added a lot of value. He's got the 5 Revel trait, and he's gotten his Nomsy upgrade to 4-star, which is a very big deal.
Yeah, the only issue is that I do feel like he's a little bit lacking in a couple areas, right? His Corki isn't going to be able to deal the huge amount of damage that we usually expect him to because the itemization is a little scuffed. His front line doesn't have any dragons, so he's going to be relying on Silas 2 and Namzi 4. And Casper does have the QSS, so no stun from the Crescendo. And just look at the Rebel damage just melting everything away. The saving grace, not many has survived. Oh, Chakki's still out. Only way for him to improve is if Soju ends up dropping, and with this Aurelion Soul about to ascend with a black hole, wiping all of Darth Nub's board. Is Darth Nub gonna bot 4 from here? He does.
Oh, he actually bought 3s. Chakki gets an extra point. That's a really big deal for Chakki. That means 4 points. It puts him at 25 total. So to get to that 22 point or 27 point threshold, he should only need 2 points in the final game. Darth Nub is absolutely fine. He has so many points, he's essentially qualified already. In fact, I think he has qualified already. And for Soju fans, the dream is still alive. How long are we dreaming here, though?
been dreaming for quite a bit longer. Soji says, you know what? I made top 4. I'm going to move my items, Evoker Emblem, onto the Ornn to try to fight Milk directly. He says, I need this CC and I need it stat. He's doubled down on it, made with the double crescendo. Here comes the Stampede. Does Mr. Deja. Excellent positioning from Milk. 8 more seconds until freedom before this black hole can start to erupt onto the board state. But Milk is at full charge with Deja and now starting to target the Wind Blast. Aurelius Soul's left alive, trying to heal with as much as he can. The final black hole doesn't get it off. And Soju out in 4th effectively ends his competition. Needed to beat his best friend Milk and was not able to do it. But Milk now puts himself in fine striking distance of potentially putting himself in day 3 contention. And this other JG, not the best item, but it's a playable one on any of his Mirage units. We'll see if he's able to play for some extra credit here, because I feel like Milk's going to be out here in 3rd, but I've been proven wrong in the past.
Yeah, Milk is, we don't know which board he lost to. I'm assuming it was Casper's board, because Casper feels like he's still the strongest board in the lobby. Kurum with a bunch of legendaries, but as you called out earlier, no real board power augments. A ton of this is going to come down to where the matchmaking is set up at this stage of the game. Who has the Ghost in their pool, because the Ghost boards are so much weaker. Wow, Milk is hit. It's the huge upgrades. He hits both the Bard 2 and the Yasuo 2. Such a big deal for Milk. He's gotten a lot stronger since his last fight. He is going up against Casper. Is it Casper's regular board, or is it Casper's Ghost board? And what is going to happen with Kurumx? 2 Yasuos on his board. And, you know, this board is scary, but not that scary from my perspective.
Well, it does have an Archangel staff, so it does change a lot of things. Kurum is going up against Casper directly, so Milk is playing that Ghost. Come down to whether or not this Deja can get past that front line fast enough. And all the front line is dead, but not before the Lightning Rain kicks in, and now able to heal a bunch because the Gunblade the Gunblade sustained the Yasuo. Yasuo sustained the Ao Shin. It's working beautifully. Oh dear, Milk end up losing to the Ghost of Casper, and now the real player that he's going up against is likely to be even stronger. I think Milk's out in 3rd place here, but we'll see if he can be able to whip out any miracles, considering that he did hit that Yasuo too.
Yeah, and joining Casper's board, we have to find a way to get stronger, right? We know he lost to Kurum. He has a ton of upgrades available, right? He has the Jinx upgrade, the Sona upgrade, the Bard upgrade, and then I wonder if there's other ways that he can think about uncapping his board. Sometimes it feels like when you're playing Revel Deja, you can get a little bit baited by staying on 5 Revel for the entire game, and I'm wondering if there are ways with this much gold at level 9 to play around some of these stronger legendary units. He can still play the Deja, but he doesn't necessarily have to lean this far into the vertical Revel trait. Going up against Milk, who actually seems to be going much better this fight. The Rebel Deja is not focusing on the right units. Milk's going to get a fight win here. So Casper has now lost back-to-back fights. How does Kurum fare? Actually, Kurum loses against Milk's Ghost. This is wild. It is anybody's game.
What is happening? There's a crazy game of rock, paper, scissors, but it just doesn't make sense. Milk's losing to the Ghost of Casper. Kurum's losing to the Ghost of Milk. Milk beats the real version of Casper. I just feel like there has to be some positioning and Yasuo and Cavalier madness going on, right? You saw the Deja targeting one of the Cavaliers on the other side, because that apparently was where the largest clump was that gave Milk the opportunity to target. Where is Kurum's Ao Shin targeting as well? There's a possibility that Lightning Rain is just not hitting the right targets, as Kurum has an opportunity to secure top 2 by eliminating Milk. Let's see it. The initial engage looks pretty fair on both sides. The first cast from Deja is going to give a little bit of extra mana. The dance from Bard gonna freeze the Ao Shin, but here comes the Lightning Rain finally. Can it clean up enough?
Deja's still alive! Deja's alive!
No!
Milk is alive! Wow, Milk the only one to win a fight. Casper has lost another fight to a Ghost, so Casper feels like he's getting thoroughly outscaled. And remember, Casper's only hope at advancing in this tournament is a 1st place here. 2nd place is not good enough. He goes 2nd, then 1st. He's going to be below that likely 27-point threshold, and Casper knows it. He needs to find his way into the top 1 here. He needs to find a way to uncap his board. Yes, the upgrades matter a ton, but he needs to find a way to get some higher quality units here potentially, because it is clearly just not cutting it. He's lost 3 fights in a row. This Deja, this Revel version of Deja is so strong, but it seems to be getting outscaled in this lobby.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways that you can go about it. One of them is to just straight up chase 3 stars. You can chase 3-star Sona, 3-star Corki. A lot of times you play party favors with that kind of setup. Another is a little bit on the mirror or obscure side, and Cass has already passed 6 copies of it. It's Shyvana 2. I think Shyvana 2 with Revel is actually a really underappreciated user of it because her big giant burst can actually do a lot of damage. And the most important thing is it can challenge the other backline AP carries. However, I think because Casper just says, you know what, this board, I'm just going to stick with my guns, and theoretically could outscale Kurum's board, which is dealing big damage.
So close.
Rain.
So
Able to
close.
survive.
Milk's out.
Wait, what? Milk lost to the ghost again? I don't understand what's happening at this point.
Yeah, Mortdog cannot convince me otherwise. Something has happened to these ghosts because ghost boards have been much stronger in this tournament than we're used to seeing. I feel like we saw every single player losing to the ghost for like the last 4 rounds. It is wild. Casper gets a desperately needed fight win, some good RNG on those Aoshin rain bolts. Casper's Deja is able to survive just barely long enough in order to get the DPS off. Casper has opted to not change his board meaningfully. He's changed Silas into Ornn, but that's it. Otherwise, we're just going for upgrades, trying to focus on these Thieves' Gloves rolls. Will he be able to get another fight win? Good Shroud onto the Aoshin.
Aoshin's going to be a little bit more delayed. Here comes the first Wind Blast. Does end up missing the Aoshin. The Yasuo is trying to tank for as long as possible. Yasuo is down. Here comes the Lightning Rain finally with 2 charges. Not able to be enough, and Casper doesn't need a first place. He landed it and is now back in the running, potentially make it to the final day of the mid-set finale.